This is the Wise Guy Radio Show, a podcast dedicated to educating and inspiring through conversations with today's top talents in the world of glass. Hey, what's happening? Welcome to A Glass Blower's Companion, episode 23. How the hell you doing today? I am recording this on April 24th, 2021, and I'm glad you have joined us today. Today's episode features Ben Barocas, a.k.a. MTP, a.k.a. Monkey Throw Poop. And him and I had a blast on this conversation. It was way overdue. We actually contacted each other about 3 years ago, or maybe 2 years ago-ish, which I didn't realize, and we both actually forgot. So it was just a matter of time where we got back together and had this conversation. So grateful for Ben to take some time out of his day to come on here and talk to us about his career. He gets into his humble beginnings, where the cat butts idea concept came from. If you're not familiar, definitely go check out his Instagram at MTP Glass, and also his weight loss journey, which has been something new for him. Inspired from his wife, so pretty excited to share his journey with you guys. Also, being that it is 424, 420 was 4 days ago, so I hope you had a fun, chill 420 as we all celebrated the beginning of legalization throughout the world for cannabis. Hopefully at some point in time it'll be federally legal, but for now we'll take what we have with medical and recreational within certain states and countries around the world too. So hope you had a safe one. And remembered all those that have been jailed and incarcerated for minor drug offenses. It's just some fucked up laws out there, and hopefully, little by little, we can all help make the change out there in the world. So keep doing what you're doing, and I think together we can all make this happen. Also, just the other day, I received my newest issue of the Flow magazine, the Spring 2021 Nature's issue. It is chock full of amazing content, tutorials, photography, stories about nature and art, and especially within the glass community. It's fantastic. You can get a digital version of this issue online at theflowmagazine.com. You can also request a paper copy, but they have mostly gone to digital. And again, you can get a paper copy if you'd like to. I think it costs a little bit extra just for the printing costs. But either way, if you have not yet subscribed to this magazine, you can do so and save 10% on your subscription by using promo code WISEGUY. That's WYZGUY in the checkout there. And they've been a great supporting of this show for about 3 years now, and happy to have a part of this series of fun episodes we do. Also, if you ever wanted to have your work published into a magazine of some sort, the Flow magazine is a great place to have your work done. Stay tuned to my Instagram at A Glass Blower's Companion, but also to the Flow magazine's Instagram, because they do put out timelines when to have your work in, where to submit it to, all the information that you need to get your work published in the magazine. And again, if you've never had it published or just want to in general, it's a great magazine. It has a well-read, wide subscription around the world, so get your art in the eyes of other people out there and collectors. Also, one of the reasons I have not had this show going that much is I got my first vaccine shot about 3 weeks ago, and the day I was going to record an episode was 2 days after my shot, which basically I felt like a bag of shit. I woke up completely drained, no energy, tired, etc. I did have a fever. By the end of the night, I had a low-grade fever, but it wasn't anything crazy. And then by Tuesday, I was still drained, got some yard work done, didn't really push myself, but I definitely was ready to call it a day when I was done with everything. But then by Wednesday, I was fine. And the only really symptom I had more than anything was just a sore arm for a couple of days. I went immediately to work after getting the shot done, so I don't know if that played a part in it or what. But they say to move your arm around just gets a little sore. Any kind of booster shot you get for any type of vaccination is going to hurt just a little bit after digging into your muscle there. But I got my second one the other day, was yesterday, I guess it was. So that's why I'm recording this now, so that just in case tomorrow when I wake up and I feel like shit, this won't be delayed to get posted. But I do recommend, and I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I do recommend getting this vaccination. I know a lot of people are apprehensive about it. I know myself personally, I was as well. Just knowing that it takes a long time generally for vaccinations to get approved and go through the trials and long-term effects and all that kind of stuff. But so far it seems to be effective. I know there's some cases where people are still getting sick, but the benefit of having this shot is that if you get COVID, the symptoms aren't going to be as critical as they could be if you don't have this vaccine. And so again, do some research, definitely educate yourself, but don't do it on the internet because the internet's just full of shit for the most part, and YouTube as well. So I don't know. Don't educate yourself. Just go get a fucking vaccine. Yeah. So there you go with that. But I definitely feel I feel good. I'm glad I got this done. And now I can get some family time in. I haven't seen my grandmother in over a year now. I haven't seen most of my family really in over a year. And just because of, especially being back to where I work and the potential exposure that I have to the thousands and thousands of people that I'm around on a daily basis, even though I'm in my own little bubble, surrounded by glass, hot glass and cold glass, and my flame and kilns and shit that's probably hot enough to kill bacteria and viruses. But it's still a concern. And as we all need to be cautious and continue to be diligent about wearing masks and washing our hands and all that good stuff. And eventually this will all pass and life will get back to normal, somewhat as we knew it before COVID, with, I think, some benefits of some things that have been happening that are making life a little easier in some ways. So there you go with that. Glass Vegas also is coming up very soon. It's going to be May 13th through the 15th. I talked to Miss Amy Short the other day, just kind of catching up on some stuff and seeing where things were with the trade show, and they are busy as hell. So if you are waiting for a phone call and have not been contacted yet and you have a booth ready to go or have paid for it or were there previously and signed up for this year's event, definitely be patient with them. They are doing the best they can to contact everybody and getting everything filled up. It's just they had basically 6 weeks more or less to fill all the booths and contact everybody. And I'm going to have Amy back on shortly after the 1st of May, after the governor of Nevada releases all the new details on their COVID requirements and all the protocols they're going to be having in place. That way Amy can give you guys a clear idea on what to expect when you show up to the show this year. So stay tuned for that full show. And again, if you have not contacted them and would like to vend, I do think they have maybe a couple spots left. Don't hold that to me because I don't know, honestly. I'm just kind of guessing. But you can definitely give them a shout. Any information you need, just go to glass.vegas, and I'll have that link in the show notes for you. And also want to give some love to my group of Patreons. The Glass group I have in there is growing slowly. They've been supporting the show, and we're having a blast. I've been posting weekly tutorials. We're doing monthly coaching calls. The coaching calls range anywhere from me watching them working on the torch, them watching me working on the torch. One of my guys in the group is going to Las Vegas for his first time. So we did a call the other day just talking about some concepts and ideas on how he can have a successful show. And it's not based on my experience because I have not done trade shows. I've done little festivals and stuff like that, as well as himself. But just from interviewing folks on the show and talking to friends that have been there, I was able to pass him on a little wisdom on how to hopefully have a very successful first show. And if you'd like to come support this podcast and everything that I am doing and become a founding member of the group, basically the first 20 people to register and sign up in this group are considered my founding members, and only have a few spots left. Basically, everybody who is in the founding member group will have access to anything and everything that I create over the next however long I'm doing this for, which is basically going to be forever and ever. Whether we move off of Patreon, go to another place, another platform, all that information and everything that I'm doing and creating behind the scenes will be available. And lots of fun things going on. I now have my whole light set up, getting ready to get the studio put together, and we'll be recording and launching the Wise Guy TV series very soon, which will be a bi-weekly show, which I'm very excited about. And we're going to be covering everything from new tools, new glass, new stuff, everything within the glass world that's being available and released, as well as talking with a little sneak preview of upcoming podcast episodes. I've always wanted to be a weatherman, which is probably sounds kind of crazy, but I have. So I'm going to be doing a little weather segment for you. We're going to have a green screen set up and I'm going to show you the map of the country, really around the world, and talking about what weather you should be expecting and to be prepared for in your studios, whether it's hot or cold or whatever in between. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And you can find that on YouTube. You just go to subscribe Wise Guy TV. I'll have a link in the show notes there. We're slowly growing the subscription there. I'd love to get up to 1,000 subscribers here as fast as I possibly can. It just has to do with YouTube and what they give you and allow you to use for tools and have access to once you reach certain levels within your subscribers. So if you'd like to come join the fun on YouTube, all of my podcast episodes go directly to there. Every podcast episode I make and post is also categorized into a playlist. So if you're looking for just artist interviews or my Wise Guy Minute series or law talk, all that kind of stuff, they're all in their own little playlists. Makes it real easy to find. And YouTube's a great place to listen to the podcast. So you can go to YouTube and look up Wise Guy TV, WYZGUI TV. I'll have a link in the show notes for you. Lots of links for you today out there in the show notes. And that being said, if you'd like to also, please, if you could possibly, me begging here, to leave a review, whether it's a 5-star, 4-star, 1-star, however you feel the show deserves, as well as a written review. The written reviews also give me basically immediate feedback on perspectives and how you feel how the show's going, things that you'd like to see changed or updated, or if you think the show's great and just love how everything is, let me know that too. It all, basically all the information that I get and feedback, I definitely take to heart, and I have made changes over the years just based on reviews and feedback from folks. So I do greatly appreciate it. It also helps the show get exposure and the algorithms and shows iTunes that there's interaction happening within myself and you. So again, you can just go into the show notes, or if you are on a Apple device, you can go to your Apple Podcast app and just go in there to the podcast itself and leave a little star review. I have a little tutorial link in the show notes as well that takes you step by step in how to actually go in there and leave a review, whether you have a Droid, you're on a computer, or you have an iPhone. It's all there for you. And with all that being said, thank you so much again for tuning into this episode featuring Ben Barocas, a.k.a. MTP. And again, you can find his art out there in the world of Instagrams at MTP Glass. I'll have that little link for him also in the show notes. Go check out his work. It's phenomenal. And hope you enjoy. Until next time, please, again, don't forget to subscribe to the show on YouTube and through whatever Apple, iTunes, whatever podcast app you use. We do appreciate it here. And happy melting. Stay hydrated. And have a wise day. Love you so much. Peace. What's going on, Ben? Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me here, man. This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah, dude, I'm looking forward to it. I know a couple years ago we chatted, and I had completely forgot until I got your number from Instagram and put it on my phone, and I already had your contact. So I was like, oh, yeah, we actually were supposed to do this like 2 years ago. So
Totally. I think I was down in Sarasota or something.
Yeah.
Getting a little sunshine.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
but sometimes it takes COVID and the pandemic to get people together.
Yeah, exactly. You know, as glass blowers, man, they say we're like cats, you know, and trying to herd cats together. It's sometimes impossible.
Seriously.
So, speaking of cats, we're going to get into cat talk later on. But before we get there, dude, I want to get us started by giving us your superhero origin story and how you were introduced to the flame.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I was born, let's see, in Brooklyn, in New York, way back in the 80s, and went through some of the Brooklyn life and then moved out to Westchester, kind of moved upstate. And by the time I went to college upstate, I started getting into, you're in college, start getting into the heady glass. All of a sudden, I was in a town with a bunch of head shops in this great college town called New Paltz. And I think in 2000 or 2001, I bought my first headpiece. It was a, reversal, had a inside out reversal on it, which was like the peak of technique at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a little sidecar bubbler that I loved, and you know, I kind of decided I wasn't going to go back to college because that just wasn't working for me. But I was in that summer. I was in a gallery in Northampton, in Massachusetts. It's called the Don Muller Gallery. It's actually owned by Peter Muller's dad, turns out. Um,
Huh.
but I saw some work by this guy Josh Simpson, and he made these amazing planets, and it just struck me like a bolt of lightning. I said, "That's it. I want to be a glassblower." And I started. I took a couple little, offhand big furnace glass blowing classes, and that wasn't quite for me. I remember stepping up to that furnace the first time they opened the door, and you just get hit with that blast of heat, and you're just like, "I'm supposed to do this every day, all day?"
Yeah.
I was like, "No."
Yeah, man, it's
And
amazing.
then eventually, I found flame working, and found a little class that I could take that, and just was like, "This is it. This is easy. I can set this up for myself," and just started rolling.
Hell yeah, yeah, man. With the hot shop, it's amazing. Like my first time ever doing it too. Like I remember just looking into that thing, and it's just like looking into the gates of hell. It's like what did I get myself into? And then the heat and everything else, and then that first gather is trying to find like the right edge of the glass and where the glass ends and begins, and like man,
Oh,
it's so intense. But any flame worker out there, listen to this. If you have not ever gathered in a hot shop, you have got to go do it.
oh yeah, I'm so glad I did it.
Yeah,
It's intense,
do you
but
find like any
it's
of those hand
so
skills that
fun.
you got then like still like transitioned into the flame working for you?
Maybe a little bit. I didn't take the classes for that long, but definitely, it got me comfortable with things like diamond shears and things like that,
Yeah.
which I'll still use at the bench here today. So, yeah, I mean, I've definitely, and it got me more comfortable just with the flow of glass and being around it, and, being faced with a giant vat of melted glass.
Yeah,
So
it's
it
intense.
teaches you a little not to be intimidated of going big or whatever once you've done that.
Yeah, definitely, and I agree too on the flow of glass process because I think I learned probably more in 2 weeks about glass than I had in like the 15 years of flame working up to that point. And then it got to the torch, and it allowed me to feel way more comfortable gathering up like
Yeah.
some 28 mil or something rod, and just having this big solid massive boro, which is a little different obviously than soft glass, just but
Yeah.
a
But you
lot
definitely
hotter.
feel more confident.
Yeah, yeah, big time. Yeah, I started having to use a
Yeah.
shield just because I wanted to get so big on the torch. I was like, just getting that fucking bent that torch scorch that you get.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah, man. So
But yeah, and then
yeah,
from there, I just little by little, I was lucky that, um I had in 2002, when I had started blowing glass, I was just kind of at the beginning of the online forums and glass blowing forums, and there was this, I remember glass lampworkers discussion group and
hmm
the fart glass pipe makers and things like that. And that was, I just felt lucky that it was just at the time when things like that were starting to be on the internet and you could find some information and community, really.
yeah, yeah, and a lot of drama.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I always laugh about man
Uh,
the GDLGA, where the hell it's what it was, man. There was so much back and forth. Like, God damn, this is like a fucking soap opera. And then we were like, we should just put cameras in our studios and start some kind of reality show. Because all the drama that happens amongst all of us dudes and our glass and sweat.
seriously. A lot of us who are just like, alone in our sheds for too long, forget how to deal with people.
Yeah, exactly. So early on, what were some of the first things you started making?
Well, at the beginning, I was really into marbles. I would, especially with, coming really like getting inspired by that Josh Simpson stuff. So I was really into marbles, and I remember one of the first videos I got was the like marble competition at like this flame off, I think in Tucson.
hmm
Um, and I remember just seeing some of the stuff, like I think Gateson and John Kabuki and Josh Sable and all those guys, and just that stuff blew my mind. So I was like really into marbles for the first year or two. Um, And then eventually I, started feeling more confident with pipes, and little by little, I sort of, grew into that area and found that that was more fun for me in terms of business and growth and stuff. So, yeah, really, I just found that I was so lucky to be able to find pipes like that. But yeah, at the beginning, it was mostly marbles. I remember my first technique that I sort of figured out was like an implosion with, now it's called a vin pin, I guess, but those betta nails,
Mm-hmm.
like the Ikebana frogs. I remember, I was inspired by Josh Simpson, and he would sometimes use those to trap bubbles in his pieces. So he would stamp that on a piece and then gather glass over it, and it would trap this great little, array of bubbles. And I was trying it with Boro, and it was kind of working. And then I was like, you know what? I need a bigger mass to really trap a lot of bubbles. So I put a bunch of color on this big glob of clear, and I smashed it onto that pad, and I saw all those dots come through the other side, and I said, "Oh, this is something different."
Yeah. Hell
And then
yeah.
I'd learned implosions by then, so I kind of like figured out to implode it, and it really, you know, that was really exciting at the beginning. And I remember, I was only a few months or a year in, and I was on these forums showing pictures, and people I really respected were like, "Whoa, that's an awesome technique. I've never seen that." And I mean, as far as I know, I was the first one in Boro doing that one, but I don't know. Who knows
Heck
with
yeah.
those things? There could be someone 10 years before something doing it.
Right. Well, like early on in my stuff, I did a filigree cane on accident, and I was like, oh my god, I
Oh,
just invented this new thing, and then I researched it, and it was like 400-year-old Italian technique. You know?
if
It's like, damn it.
I'd only been born 401 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man, it's fun. It's I remember going back and seeing and it could have been your work too, because it's talking with the other artists as well. But I remember doing some like early on doing implosions, but like doing like a little dot of cobalt, and then I would take my tungsten pick and like push that into the back of the pendant, and then add a little bit of clear behind that to kind of get that
Right.
air bubble filled in as much as I could because I was worried about it cracking, and then add another bit of color behind that, and then just keep pushing it into the marble, and making these little like mountain ranges and shit.
Yeah.
It was fun, but most of the time I just got so focused on the pattern that the piece would cool down and I'd lose the core heat and then it would crack on me. So I moved away from
Right.
the marbles, but it's looking and having done glass. You've been on the torch for a long time too. I'm still so intrigued by it, especially nowadays. But marbles and just stuff that's being done. I mean, you get like Paul Stankard and stuff. It's a whole nother technique and process, but it's still just it's amazing what you can do if you can encase something inside of this viscous hot fucking liquid and wonder how the fuck did that get in there.
Totally. It's still like magic,
Yeah, yeah, completely.
And especially with marbles, I always found that, first of all, they're so pleasing to hold, and just the shape of it is so like there's no corners, there's no anything. It's just so smooth. And then just the magnifying effect of the lens is just, offers so many possibilities. And it's just such a great form.
Yeah, it's definitely like the possibilities are endless. I mean, glass in general is like that, but when you like focus on one
Yeah.
specific niche and within the world, it's the same thing. It's amazing how deep you can go with the marbles. I would love to just spend a week just playing with marbles, but then I want to make pipes and make money. You
Totally.
know? So what were
Uh,
some of the first pipes you were doing?
well, it started out with definitely just wrap and rake spoons and things like that. When I was probably a year and a half into glass blowing, I had met some people who were, more full-time glass blower or pipe makers, really. And I got in a studio with them and just watching them go through their production. And I was like, oh, that's kind of neat. You just sit down and kind of do the same thing over and over again instead of just sort of being like, let me see what the glass wants to do right now.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely that sort of early production mindset was really interesting to me. And so first it was wrap and rake spoons, but they'd always have like a little fancy marble on it or something. And then eventually I got into inside out one hitters, inside out spoons. But those inside out one hitters, I called it the money one because I would just like buzz those out all day, and it would just pay all my bills. Like everybody wanted those. Everyone was, was after him.
Heck yeah.
So like really that was a big one. Um, yeah, and then I'd experiment with a little bit of, some fun bubblers or something a little more wild or certain kind of style. Um, but nothing too crazy at first. And then probably, let's see, I moved down to New York City in 2009. And I moved into a studio with Joe Itza, who he had been working up at Toro a little while before and then kind of left there, and there was a bunch of drama, this and that, but he was into making these big tubes with, ground glass joints. And then I was like, whoa, this is a whole other world. I
Yeah.
haven't done any of this stuff. Yeah, and at that point I'd actually just come back from a trip through California, and I took a class with Josh Sable, and that kind of inspired me to up my game a little bit. And yeah, so I started making a little bit more of the heady pipes and incorporating some ground joints and things. And I remember Joe Itza told me, he said, if you can come up with a signature slide, you'll be set. So I was
Yeah.
doing these air trap slides with the air trap rim around it and a little vortex as a handle, and those were going great. People really like those.
Hell yeah.
Uh, yeah, and I'll still once in a while I'll still bust out one of those just for fun. But yeah, it was those, and then other random like kind of heady things, kind of a little bit more of a chaotic rake kind of thing that was pretty cool, and reticellos, stuff like that. And then yeah, little by little, just sort of cleaning things up and making things nice, and then eventually started making cat butts.
Hell yeah. Love the cat butts. Before we get into the cat
Yeah.
butts, how like early on, how were you selling your work? Did you have like a shops you're selling to or a distributor, or how were you moving your product?
Yeah, I was mostly just driving around to stores and selling stuff. You know, for the very beginning, I was mostly living out in Cape Cod. My folks had kind of retired out there. They just retired out there. So I was like living out there for a bit. And then I would come back to the Hudson Valley in New York and um, sell a bunch of glass in shops I knew, and, go down to Long Island and visit my sister and hit up some shops there. And, that was kind of the early days where you were just maybe kind of starting to be able to find head shops online, and
Hmm.
before that it was like, oh, you had to talk to someone. They were like, oh yeah, there's this shop in this town over there and you can check out there, and like you'd have to sort of, search it out by word of mouth. But yeah, eventually I just ended up linking up with a bunch of stores, and then I moved upstate, for a while. And when I was up there, it was great. There's a couple of shops that I dealt with just to get my monthly expenses under, taken care of, like food and my weed was pretty much covered by those
Hell
guys.
yeah.
But then like once a month, me and my buddies would come down and do a loop through Long Island and hit up like 6 or 7 or 8 shops, and just like, by the end of it, we had it all worked out, where there was this one guy that he would he would stay open the latest, and he was always the guy who was like, well, if I take all of it, how much will you charge? Or like, how
Hmm.
about this much if I take all the rest? So we had it all worked out where he was the last stop on the loop. And then, we'd go in there and he'd be like, well, how much for everything? And at that point, that was just leftovers to us. So we're give him a good deal, go back with cash, and we're set for the month.
Hell yeah. That's the best. I love those kind of shops. They're like, how much for everything? Yeah.
Yeah.
The ones that are the worst though are like, I'll give you $50 for everything. I've had those guys. I'm like,
Seriously.
fuck you.
You're like, that's $2,000 in glass.
Yeah. And then you walk out with your tail between your legs.
Yeah. Oh my God. I remember when I was starting out, and yeah, I lived near New York City, and I was like, oh, there's so many head shops in New York City. Let me try to go in and show them some stuff. And I had some inside out one hitters, and I was like, yeah, these are like $13 or something. And the guy just starts laughing. He's like, ah, I get these for $2. Points at some Chinese ones. I'm like, okay,
Yeah. I hate those
I guess
fuckers.
this is not the store for me.
Yeah. Which is good, man. That's good to recognize that kind of stuff. I tell people all the time, like, you got to recognize those kind of shop owners because they're out there, and it's not a bad thing. I mean, it is what it is,
Yeah.
But if it's
Yeah.
it's just not a place that you want to sell your work necessarily. I think my most
Yeah.
embarrassing thing, like early on, when I was first getting the bubblers down. I had this guy I'd go to sometimes, and it was like a record shop, kind of like indoor flea market store that he had like 5 cases of pipes in. And he's like, I had an appointment with this guy. Everything was set up. I was going to pay my rent for the month, and then I go in there with all these bubblers, and for one, he like tried undercutting me, but also I sat there for like probably an hour waiting for him to deal with his customers. He just kept like putting his finger up, like 1 minute, to me, kind of thing. And
Yeah.
he gets I think he ended up buying like 5 bubblers off me, so obviously didn't pay my rent. And one of them was like it was like all wrap and rig shit, and he put one of the hammer bubblers on the countertop, and it like broke at the seam in 2 pieces.
Oh man.
And I had to give him back $15. Kind of thing. He didn't want anything else in my case. He's like, okay, I'll take the money back for this one. And ever since that point in time, like I always did a weld check, just tapping it against my hand or whatever I had to do to make sure that my connections were clean. And it was like a big wake up call, not only to get my shit together in life, but also like, get my glass shit together and understand quality versus like what a seconds and odds and everything else in the process. So yeah, it was a lesson learned.
Yeah. The difference between those and something that's like good enough and like will probably make it through, until it gets on the shelf, and then it's their problem. But
yeah, back when I was starving and you show up to shops with your glass still warm because you're trying to pay your rent or your power before they shut it off,
Totally.
Yeah, I don't miss those days. I mean, I'm glad I had them, but I definitely don't miss them.
Yeah. Yeah, you definitely learn a lot through that stuff, and especially, I feel like a lot of people these days who are starting out, they don't have that experience with production as much.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of get into it and they're like, all right, step 1, make a rig. Whereas
exactly.
like back in the day, we're like, all right, let me start with a blob, and then maybe I can do a pendant, and I'll do 100 of those, and then maybe I can do a spoon or a oney or something.
Yep.
And then you do thousands of those, and really learn technique and the little things to look for in each step, and it really teaches you a lot.
Yeah, I think it's the only way to learn, honestly. Like I bitch about it all the time for the last 5-6 years doing the show about the kids that came in and after Degenerate Art came out, and then the concentrates became a thing, and then the rigs became the new spoon, quote unquote, and seeing like these beginner 3 weeks on the torch selling rigs, auctioning them off to their friends for like $5,000, and it's like the fuck. And now these guys have their shit on eBay for half price that they paid for it.
Right.
It drives me nuts. But so early on, you're doing production. Was there a point in time? I mean, maybe you still are doing it, but like that production mindset for our generation was very difficult to get out of. Once we got to the point to where you still do production, but you don't have to do production necessarily because you've established yourself. So like, was there a point where you found like you had to fight that urge to want to crank out 50 hand pipes in a day instead of just like 2 pieces, or are you still struggling with that, or like how's that going for you?
I mean, I like to I like to build relationships with shops, so it does get hard if a shop like requests something and they're like, oh, can you make us some of these? And then if it's something I might not be as like inclined to do, sometimes I'll do it depending on what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously if they're like, we want $2 spoons, I'll be like, that's somewhere else, know. But yeah, I still like to do some sort of production, like slides and one hitters. They might be my kind of style, where they might be mismatched or a little bit heavier, but I still like a certain amount of production, like smaller items.
Mm-hmm.
Just because not only is it, they're easier to sell, but I feel like I like to look in the kiln and know that I've finished some things that day. And sometimes if you're working on something big for a while, it's, like, did I do anything today? Like, I guess I made some steps in that thing, but it's doesn't feel as rewarding,
Yeah, and that's why I asked, man, because like that's where I'm at right now. So like, I guess about 3 years ago, I took like a year and a half off from pipes just to like kind of change my brain and the production side of things. So I kept wanting to go in there and just, even if it was like my one-off stuff, I was still wanting to make it in like a production sense, which isn't a bad thing, but I had to like just completely correct that, and so I took the time off and it helped. And then COVID happened, which really helped me focus on just, making one thing at a time. But then
Right.
my buddy Chris has a dispensary, or not, he has a distribution company, and he had hit me up and it's like, hey man, you want to pick up some lines of work? And I'm like, fuck yeah, just because I enjoy production, you know. So I'm making these Wrap and Rick Sherlocks for him, and I love
Yeah.
banging out like 50 of them over 2 days and having a kiln full of shit. You know, it's very rewarding. But then at the same time, it's nice to have, you know, one piece after a couple days.
Yeah, I think variety is so nice in that kind of situation where, yeah, sometimes you just don't want to think about what you're making as much, and you're like, I just want to like be the machine. I just like I've learned this stuff. I just want to let it go
Hmm.
and be in that flow state, and
Yeah.
sometimes with bigger projects, you kind of have to think about each step and what do you want to do here? What do you want to do there? And should I make this bigger or smaller, or do I need to remake that? It's like a lot of thought, and which is super fun sometimes, but sometimes you're like, I just want to go.
Man,
I just want to move.
yeah, totally. It's exhausting. Like I feel like that. Like there's days where I'm trying to plan out a piece and I'm exhausted before even turning my torch on. You know? It's
Seriously.
crazy. But but I always say like our industry and what we do is it's unique compared to the rest of the art world, you know, and I think it's
Yeah.
it's a great experience, and I don't take it for granted. Like I loved the fact that I can spend like 6 hours and just sketch out pictures and plan out at the attack on a piece before I even get to it, and
Yeah.
still knowing I'll finish the piece and then get paid for it, and it paid for all that time, that you spend on it.
Yeah.
It's fulfilling. Now, for those just getting started, do wrap and rig spoons and one hitters and all that shit. Don't jump into rigs yet. Wait, take your time.
Oh man, I remember one time I had just a few years ago someone hit me up to see if I would give them a lesson or something. They've never blown glass before, and I was like, "Oh, I kind of have a private studio. It's not really open for lessons and stuff. I appreciate it." And the guy was like, "I mean, I don't want to make anything complicated, just like a rig or something."
Yeah, just a recycler.
And
Yeah.
I just that cracked me up for like 20 minutes straight. I was just like, I don't want to do anything complicated. Sure, I've never done it before. Just like, rig.
Yeah, it's hilarious, right? And what I think is great though is that the other side of the collectors and the people that buy our stuff, they're educated. Like they know the color palette, they know the hype shit. They know what a Jesus seal is. That kind of stuff. I'm still trying to figure out how to
Yeah.
fucking do a Jesus seal. I could do them, but I haven't done them enough to have it down to a science yet. So it's funny, they come to you for a custom piece and they have this list of things that they want in it, and it's like, well, I'll do my best. Or I just say no,
Totally.
Which,
Oh man, I remember when I first saw the Jesus seal. I had taken a class with Micah Evans up in at Prism Glass up in Troy, New York here, and yeah, he showed me that and it was amazing. It was so interesting. I couldn't believe that it actually created a hollow opening,
hmm
or that it opens through. And and I was talking to him later. I was like, "So do you have the JesusSeal.com?" And he was like, "No." And he looked it up, and someone else had it. And I was like, "Well, sounds like you got to start the real JesusSeal.com." And I think he ended up getting it.
that's amazing. Get the little check mark next to it while you're at it.
Totally.
That's
And I think
awesome.
me and Phil from Prism ended up making Micah like a Jesus seal, like a seal that was on a cross. Like just like Jesus made a slide like that for him.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, Mike is a beast, dude. The shit that's the scientific little applications that he does, just
Oh,
mind blowing.
incredible.
Yeah, it's fucking crazy shit. Yeah, he's a great guy too,
Yeah.
and a great teacher on top of all of it.
Oh, seriously. Yeah, I mean, it's one thing to just have those creative ideas, but then to be able to actually execute it, and then to be able to explain how you're executing it to people, that's just a bunch of levels of brilliance.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, man, it's cool, dude. When you like look into the industry at some like Salt, for instance, like just some particular guys, you're fucking talented as
Yeah.
shit yourself. So I'm not like undercutting yourself, but how it is. Like we have a couple guys and gals in the industry that you can look at that just
Real
they're not.
inspiration.
Yeah, totally. And also sometimes you
Yeah.
might just sell your torch. you know,
Totally.
especially the new
But
guys that
like,
are like 3 years into it. And they're making just incredible stuff, but they've also had like someone like a Mike Luna or somebody to work under for like 3 years.
Right. Yeah, I remember seeing like Avatar glass when he first started popping and being like, how long has this guy been on the torch? Like what?
Yeah,
Like and he's making this awesome shit? Like what's going on?
yeah. I know it's amazing.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so cool.
Yeah, just that feeling of like, wow, this is incredible. This is awesome for the future of glass. And then part of you is also like, maybe I'm worthless and I shouldn't be blowing glass anymore.
Yeah,
Should
exactly.
sell my torch.
Yep. Yeah,
Uh,
social media is interesting for all those factors. It's like, man,
yeah.
what are we doing these days?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so
Uh,
funny. So, yeah, man.
very
So you go through your whole progression of learning your process, and you're selling your works and stuff, and then you got your own place. And I
yeah.
just reading your bio, I understand where things come from, but for the audience, like, at what point in time did your voice, in a sense, start to speak through your work and find like your little signature stuff that you're doing, like the cat butts,
Sure.
for instance?
Yeah, sure. Well, let's see. I think, like I said, I moved to New York City in 2009, at the end of 2009, and started working with Joe Itza. And, so for maybe like 2 years after that, 2 or 3 years, I was just kind of, like I said, tightening things up. And I was doing some cool pieces with like blow ins, with reticellos, and trying to get more organic and fumey. And I love that sort of glass. And I worked on some line work stuff. Just I'd taken a class with Yusheen and with Cowboy, just in terms of learning the how to produce stuff quicker and how to tighten up wig wags and this and that, and I think filicellos and other things. So I was really just experimenting with a lot of techniques. um, and then probably in 2012, I'd say, uh, I was at a trade show, and I was hanging with, like Elbow and Coil and those dudes. And I think that was just when like Elbows, actually, it was probably before this, maybe 2011 or something. I think Elbows Dinos are really popping and Coil has monies and stuff. And I was like, man, this sculptural stuff is like, that's where it's at, like
Mm-hmm.
people, it's such a way to really get a signature piece, to have a sculpted piece,
Yeah.
and but at the time I felt like a lot of the stuff I'd seen was like skulls and scorpions and snakes and stuff that doesn't really like connect with me. I mean, like I appreciate that stuff, but I'm not that like metal death,
Right. It's like the tattoo world
kind
of
of
our
thing.
of glass blowing, kind of stuff. Is why I looked at it,
Exactly.
like flash art,
The Ed Hardy kind of
Yeah,
sculpting
exactly.
or something.
Yeah.
And so for me, I was like, yeah, that stuff's not quite it. But I was like, I'll think of something sculptural eventually. And at the time, I was working, I had my studio in my sister's garage. And when it was time for me to take a break, I'd go inside and kind of sit on the couch and chill out a little bit, and maybe pet her cat here and there. And one day my sister's cat went into heat. And so for like 3 days, it was waving its butt in my face, just going.
Oh, it's the worst.
And then by about day three, I was like, "Oh, universe, I hear you. This is what you're trying to tell me." So I said, "Okay, glass cat butts, I get it."
Oh god,
Uh,
that's great.
and of course, it's funny. My sister's cat is named Rosie. She has
Nice.
a pink rosy butthole, and and yeah, the first ones I tried were a little weird. I didn't quite have I had tried like a bowl push on the side kind of thing. I couldn't quite get it, and then all of a sudden, probably by the maybe third one or something, I realized that I had this tool that uh, that I used. I remember we were talking about sort of poking things in
Hmm.
glass and trapping a bubble and stuff. And I had this textured tool that all these lines kind of come into a point that I used to push in some clear, and then I'd fume and I'd put in like a dot of cobalt or something, and it made a cool little pattern. Sort of, I think like or Stoke Glass. I think he kind of does some similar stuff
Okay.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh-huh.
But yeah, I had this tool with just these lines that kind of came in. And I was like, oh, this is the same size as a bowl push, and it's textured. and it would make a cool little wrinkled pink butthole.
It's perfect.
And before I knew it, I had them. I had a product,
That's amazing.
and and it was fun because right away it was kind of a signature thing. People either loved it or they hated it, and it was like just an immediate feeling from them.
Yeah, and that's when you know you've hit it, dude. Like when you get both sides of the fence, like that's when you know it's a good thing.
Totally. I remember like sometimes it would be so much fun putting, at a trade show or, any kind of show, like I put some stuff on a table and then I might walk away and then I look over a few minutes later and I can see somebody showing their friends some of the cat butts and they'd just be like, they'd be nodding and then all of a sudden have a disgusted look on their face. Just be like, oh God, why?
Yeah, it's either what the fuck with a question mark or what the fuck with an exclamation point. You know,
Seriously.
it's
But it was
amazing.
cool. I was like, I immediately knew if I was gonna, get along with this person or not.
Yeah,
So it was great,
yeah, it's hilarious. What
great
what was
business card.
the pink that you were first using?
Just blush
Okay.
from the Boro bars.
Yep.
Yeah, I found that was really, kept its substance.
Yeah, it's a great
And the
pink.
only issue I've had with that stuff was, I tried to do, at one point I tried to do a cat butt millie, and I'd used, pink for the butthole, and I don't know if I just didn't get it hot enough or whatever it was, but I pulled some of it down, and the thing it crackled all through the pink. Like I've never had anything crackle like that before, where it just the pink disintegrated, and like I almost had a hollow millie. It was like the
Huh.
millie actually had a butthole because the pink just came out.
Yeah,
It
those
was
Boro bars
amazing.
are wild, dude. I know what you mean though. Like, sometimes you gotta like spin it because it's like it's not mixed color really. It's just pressed powder. So you gotta like
Right.
mix it while you're working it. But I've had some of I think it was the sea foam or something it's called that I had that same kind of issue with. I was just trying to mix it up and it just didn't work right. Some of those colors get all grayed out real easily if you're using too much heat. It's
Yeah.
they're weird, but that blush is great, man. I've done lotus flowers and all kind of fun shit with that stuff. I love it.
Yeah. Seriously. I mean, I feel like I heard a rumor that they're not making Boro bars anymore or certain colors or something. I don't know. There was
Yeah,
some
so one of our
color talk thing where they were freaking out.
the main white that I use on everything at Disney is Bora Bars white. Like I'll use Star White on stuff, but the Bora Bars and yes, from what we understand, they're not making it right now. And I think part of it is because they can't get the raw materials that they need right now because of COVID and stuff coming in from overseas.
Oh wow.
I don't know if it's factual or not, but that's what I understand. I know just as our company's dealing with stuff getting imported right now because of COVID, like we're just so low on merchandise because of it. And I think it's
Right.
with that being said, I think this part of COVID, there's a lot of things that have been positive about it, unfortunately. But one of the things I think is the reliance on things coming in imported from overseas, and really relying on us as a country to produce this stuff ourselves. And there's
Yeah.
so much industry that we could have here again on a positive side of things that just it's cheaper obviously to go overseas with it, but still.
Right. It inspires people to give that little bit of thought and like, all right, well, what can I do locally or what can I do instead?
Hmm.
And, you know, especially like you were saying, once I feel like business is kind of booming right now in the time of COVID. And,
Yeah.
when things like that, when you need to make sales and you're like, oh, that sale is right there. And maybe you can't get the stuff you need. All of a sudden you get really inventive,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, exactly.
You get, and so that's what we need in this business for sure.
Yeah, man, that's what being an entrepreneur is all about. We all have that chance. Like for years and
Yeah.
years and years, I wanted to make my own little titanium clip-on thing for cell phones, and I was actually trying to like drill them out of my. I had an old pair of rose shade glasses. I was trying to drill out the lens, with a core
Right.
bit and stuff, and try to make my own things. And they're made like I think Aurora makes them, or they were for a bit. But now,
Hmm.
dudes over at Diddy Clips have a product now that they're making that's a clip-on. They're making them for cameras and everything nowadays, and it's a great little product.
Right. Yeah. Is that Travis Weber? Is he making them? I saw he's
I
been
think
connected to something
I
like
think
that.
so. Is that who it is? I think it is.
I think. Yeah, that's awesome. He's a great dude. So talented.
Yeah, yeah, man. I love it. And I think that's what's fun with this industry too is seeing all these little small side industries that are businesses that are growing and becoming what they are because of our pipe industry, like the color,
Yeah.
like look
Yeah,
how
there've
long
really been a bunch.
like gas, they didn't like the pipe makers for a long time. We were the outside guys, and now we're accepted.
Yeah. Finally.
Yeah, thank God.
It's funny. There was so long of, I feel like we pipe makers were so dismissed by the art scene that a lot of us haven't spent time like learning about it.
Hmm.
And so now we kind of dismiss the art scene in some ways, where I think they're coming around, and now we need to learn more about the history of a lot of these things. And you know, like we said, back in the day, it was so easy. You just drive to shops and sell your glass, and you didn't really have to put together a portfolio or have any sort of like social. There was no social media thing back then, but like really showing yourself off, in a certain way and presenting yourself in a certain way.
Hmm.
I feel like we can learn a lot from the art world in that way,
Yeah, I completely agree, dude. Like early on
And
in my podcast, I had Steve Seislov on, and just talking about his early career and doing his goblets and being a part of like that art world, and he just got tired of it, tired of dealing with like the snootiness and the bullshit, of what was happening at that time. So he's like, fuck it, he's got into pipes, because it was more of his people and probably more lucrative for him too, because how it is, you can make a perfume bottle or a pipe, and the pipe's gonna sell, but he's super talented, obviously. But it's I agree, like we all need to kind of immerse ourselves and understand like the lineage of the art world, going back to early days of the Venetians and where things have come from. It's super important.
yeah, yeah, and I think it's that John Coltrane or line or something where he's like, you have to know the rules to be able to break them,
Yeah.
kind of thing. Where it's like if we can learn about the whole history of why these art critics or even just craft people or whatever industry we're trying to talk to and appeal to, like how they look at us and why they look at us and what their references are, and all that stuff, it really makes it easier to I think grow in that world.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Absolutely,
Yeah.
man. Yeah, so back on the cat butts. So
Yeah.
I'm just
On the important stuff like cat butts.
exactly. Let's little anuses. So where you did them on cows too, right? Like you're doing them on some other animals. I kind of expanded the line of butts. Oh,
Yeah, I've done a couple of. Oh,
I thought I
can you
lost
hear
you
me?
first. Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I haven't done a ton of different kind of butts just because like some of them got a little annoying, but the cow butt I just had to do.
Hmm.
I was I feel like there was so much opportunity there with the udders and the patterning, and you know especially with the term that you use, when someone's smoking out of a rig or something, and it gets all white, you're like, oh, you're milking that tube. You're really milking that. And I was like, oh man, now I got to make a cow. Like, so yeah, I made a good amount of like some cow butt tubes, where the cow butt is the perk and it bubbles out of the udders.
It's amazing.
And I try to put a little bit of green and brown frit at the bottom just to give it a little bit of a, like it's hanging out in the field kind of feel to it.
Yeah,
But those are so much fun.
so creative. I love it.
And one of the bonuses is that just with the water level being where it is, like any kind of reclaim somehow always gets trapped right on the butthole and the tail. So it looks like a little poop butt. Just that if you don't clean it, you're like, ah, that cow's got a messy butt. Better rinse that out.
Oh man, that's awesome. It's a good reminder to clean your pipes. That's
Exactly.
amazing. I love it. So are you still doing? Because I know I've gone through your feed and seen some stuff recently, but are you still? Is that still part of your line of work that you're doing? Is like a signature thing?
Once in a while, it's not as much of my like daily thing, because I got a lot of different lines I've been doing, and that was, those are so much fun. But unless I really get an order for them, or I get some wild hair up my butt to just be like, oh, I haven't made a cat butt in a while, Sometimes I'll make them, but yeah, these days I got so much going on with mismatched work, and I don't even have another kind of series I've been working on called like the relativity technique, and I barely have time for those two, but it's yeah, I'm really lucky to be able to have multiple things that I'm interested in.
Yeah, man. I love going back and revisiting stuff like you're saying, like doing the mixed match stuff, like going through and just seeing how your wrap and breaks look now, or how a reversal looks now, or whatever. Like I've been seeing,
Yeah,
like Dosh has been posting videos of doing cut and flips, and like early on in my inside outs, that's how I did inside outs, was cutting and flipping, and it's badass.
right.
Just seeing him doing those little things, and it's inspiring to go back and try it. Like it'd be fun to do like a whole timeline of work of all the things that you've made over the years and just revisit it
Yeah,
right now and just make it all. See how they look now compared to
yeah,
what they used to look
seriously.
like.
Yeah, it's amazing to think back. I mean, yeah, I've been blowing glass for 18 years now or so, or more, almost, and almost 19, I guess. And yeah, there's been so much history of like, oh, let me try this, let me try that. What's this idea about? Or a half done idea where now you get the other half, and you're like, oh, I get what that was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Just so many possibilities with glass. It's endless.
Oh
Like we
man.
were talking about
Yeah.
with marbles. I mean, it's almost like fractal kind of thing where it's like the whole glass world is infinite, but if you focus on even like a little part of it, like a marble, that part's infinite also.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. That's why having
Yeah.
direction is ideal. Like with work, like I have guests all the time. Like, hey, you sit to make what you want to make. I'm like, within reason, but if I don't have direction, then I'll just sit here and look at my torch all day and trying to figure out what the hell I'm gonna make.
Right.
You know.
Just fun sometimes too. You look around at what's sitting on the bench. You're like, oh, I can melt this into that, and but
Mm-hmm.
most of the time it's nice to have some direction.
Yeah, it definitely helps. I'm going through your feed right now and seeing the Peter Moeller collabs, which is
Oh yeah,
pretty cool little circle there, dude. Going from being
yeah,
inspired in his dad's gallery and then actually working with Peter. That's pretty rad.
yeah. Seriously, I mean, he was. I mean, yeah, the history was really special. Just that was a great time. I got to go up and hang out at his place for the day, and actually I spent the night over there, and I think worked for 2 days. Um, yeah, it's so much fun. It's thought and it's great to be able to go to the city and work with people who are, you appreciate their work, and just there's this history, and especially with glass blowers, where so many of us are, behind a torch or behind our phone most of the time and don't get to be as social as we would like. It's really a great opportunity to be able to just hang out with people who you can relate to.
Yeah.
And especially when they're amazing artists like Peter,
Yeah.
it's an honor.
Yeah, man. I tell you, a couple years ago, I took a class with him and Joe Peters together, and it was I was just stoked
Yeah.
just to see these two guys together, because they have their history, working together, and then just seeing them working on these pipes and stuff. And
Whew.
we got to take turns going into the studio. It's like it was up in Tea Leaf up in Tallahassee here. It's a great smoke shop, but
Right.
you like watch from the front of the glass, and you can actually we would take turns going inside. And so I just stood over Peter's shoulder, watching him rock his Herbie and doing his little button and thread pushes that he was doing on a piece. They were doing like a voodoo dragon, basically, like Joe Peters dragons, but voodoo style. And it was just for one, it was cool to
Right.
see him open up his box and have all these little pre-made buttons that he had for one, and then seeing him apply them and then add the threads. It's just like I said. Sometimes you want to hang up your torch. It's just incredible stuff, and
Uh,
the details, and him being somewhat of a newer flame worker on top of it,
right.
which is just
Yeah. I mean, that's
phenomenal.
so amazing. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense when you think of I mean, the offhand furnace work he's done is incredible.
Hmm.
And then you think of, like I said, he probably grew up in that gallery and seeing his dad's collection and all that work and being around that stuff. You really learn what to look for in good glass.
Yeah,
And Peter knows it.
yeah,
And I think Joe Peters too is just it's incredible. I've seen him work a few times and hung out with him, and he has such a great flow to everything he does. It's like somehow he he just is so comfortable with every step of the process. It
Yeah.
just seems like it just comes naturally, and he's like, oh yeah, I know I do this and I do that, and everything just when I've seen him work, at least it just kind of falls into place. And I mean, it's not like it's easy, but he doesn't seem stressed or worried or, oh, where's this thing or where's that thing. It's very smooth.
Yeah, definitely. It really is. And with that class too, like so I've only taken 2 classes ever, and it was those 2 and then the first class was a Steve Siveslove and Coil class I took. And it was the
Oh,
first time
nice.
those 2 guys had ever got a chance to work together and teach. So which was a lot of fun to see that whole process. But like watching Joe and Peter, like everything they made came out perfect. We got to see all the pieces and hold them and everything. But like watching Steve and Coil work, and they had a couple issues, and Steve was working on this female torso, and it cracked and fell all apart. And I like
Hmm.
we had a microphone that we could talk into so they could hear us in the studio space. And I was like, hey man, I'm glad that just happened. And everybody looks at me like I'm fucking crazy. And he agreed with me because it's like you get a chance to understand that these guys, we look up to them, and shit still breaks for them too. I've never seen Joe Peters have
Yeah.
anything break. I mean, I'm sure it does, but, you know. But that class I took, it didn't.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, Joe's definitely got a zen flow to what he does. He's very very meticulous and deliberate with all of his moves.
Yeah. Yeah. Super interesting. And yeah, I agree. Sometimes just watching, not only realizing that these people are human and that they go through the same struggles that we do, but seeing sometimes, I mean, if it explodes, it's a little bit harder, but a crack or something like that, watching how they fix it
Mm-hmm.
or how they go through and make something better, or their process, when something like that happens, is really helpful because probably when we go back to our home studio and try it, our shit's going to crack the first time too.
Yeah.
So it's good to see the process.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. Yeah, it's so beneficial. And once all the COVID shit gets over, I'm sure a lot of classes will resume and stuff. And anybody listening to this, I recommend taking a class as obviously from the right people because not everybody can teach, which is important to be picky with who you're learning
Yeah.
from, for one. But it's still
Right.
educating yourself is important. That's why it's out there for.
I totally agree. I mean, just having somebody, especially at the beginner stages where you're just learning stuff, you're figuring stuff out, like you just need somebody to show you how to do it safely, how to have good habits, someone to really teach you how to respect all the parts of glass blowing and start you off on a good path.
Yeah.
Once you have that down, I mean, there's a lot of information out there, that you can pick up, I'm sure, on YouTube and all over the place. But and just doing it is so important. I mean, most of it is just doing it. But yeah, like taking classes, I think is so great.
Mm-hmm.
I've been, lucky. You'll see, yeah, like I said before, I've taken classes with Yushin and Cowboy and Micah and Mattis Cookie and Josh Sable. And yeah, it's really incredible to be able to watch these, masters work and just be able to ask them questions, and all the small details are so important. I'd say sometimes that it's, with glass blowing, but with a lot of other stuff too, I feel like getting 80% of the way there takes like 20% of the effort, and
Mm-hmm.
then getting that last 20% of like perfection on whatever it is you're doing, that takes like 80% of the effort. You gotta,
Yeah.
it takes so much work to be able to dial all this stuff in and look at all the little details that make the actual difference. And that's where there's so much work. And when you can have somebody who's been through that show you the way, that just helps you so much.
Oh yeah, it's priceless. Like how many times have you seen like a beautiful piece, but it had a janky fucking mouthpiece, or like a bowl hole was like off to the side, or something like that? Just drives me
Seriously.
nuts.
Or like, you call that a carb?
Yeah, you could
Come
fit.
on, man.
You could stick your dick inside the thing. It's so big. It's like, what are you thinking? Come on, folks.
Seriously.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it's so crucial. But it's again, you see these guys working, and it's like for me, I the first thing I looked at was like, okay, how do they set up their tools? What tools are they using? And then also like I
Yeah.
watch like hand skills are what I think are critical to watch too, because like the glass flow is one thing, but like watching hand movements and palms in, palms out. What are they doing at what time? And it's like it's the chess match concept of what 5 moves down the road are you going to need to do to make sure that you can continue to keep your chessboard alive. It's
Right.
you know, it's cool. I need to take more classes. Like I'm guilty of only taking the 2 classes. I learned a shit ton that I did, and I've learned from like guys at work that I over at the Mouse House and stuff like that. But I've been stuck in my studio for too long, and I definitely want to take more classes over the years and learn.
Yeah. I mean, but it is hard to get away from your work and your routine and all that stuff to, and it's got to be a great class to be able to be like, all right, I'm going to give all that up and pay all this money to go, do what I do basically, or watch someone do kind of what I do. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, there are times when it's so helpful. Oh yeah, just thinking back, I've been to more classes than I realized. I did one with Z and Time
Nice.
out in Rhode Island. I mean, Z's sculpting is just so incredible, and
Yeah, she's
Time
amazing.
too. He's got those great foxes and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
One with Hoobs and Hops out in Long Island Glass here. That was a lot of fun. Hoobs is just incredible. So, I mean, his sculpture is just wild.
Yeah.
I mean, the scale he can do, and just he was another one that watching him work was just seemed so natural, and he seemed so comfortable. You know, and Roger Paramore too. That's another class I took way back when.
Huh.
I mean, talk about hand skills. That's like,
Yeah.
he's got it down.
Yeah. Speaking of not being accepted in the pipe
uh,
industry, I wonder how he feels about pipes nowadays.
yeah,
There's a couple of those older guys that
yeah.
back
I
in the day were
remember.
like, no pipe making guys.
Yeah, I remember he dipped his toe in for a second, like had some spoons or something, and then was not so well received, I think. And then he was kind of like, fuck it.
Yeah. Well, even like Mickelson early
uh,
on, like I interviewed him on the show, and he was talking about that like early on, like it was saying he was kind of not intimidated, but just like an interesting thing for him to get into the pipe market. And a lot of people were pissed about it. Well, we got Mickelson in here now, especially after the whole "if you just didn't push the damn bowl" thing comment that he made on the degenerate art thing. And so I asked him actually, I asked him about that on the podcast interview, and he was talking about how that was out of context and timing wise of conversations that were going on.
yeah,
And but he was humbled and was welcomed into the industry, and now you see what he's doing. It's crazy.
yeah. I think one of the important things with Mickelson was that he might have not loved the pipe work itself, or maybe not loved that we pushed a bowl in the but I think he's had a respect and love for the pipe makers. I remember him teaching classes, and I mean, I've heard like Slinger and people talk about like, oh yeah, I learned this growl technique from Mickelson, or
Mm-hmm.
this and that. I remember when I was starting out seeing him, come to events and things like that it was really cool to see. He was just like a chill dude who was, around, and, we all respected his work because it was incredible. But, obviously that was before he was making pipes. I just remember one time at this, this event, AGI
Mm-hmm.
out here, Art Glass Invitational. Must have been maybe 2004 or five or something like that. It was pretty early. Um, and Mickelson was there, and he came up to a friend of mine. He saw my friend had these shirts, I think, that he was selling there that were his brand or whatever was called Raw Dog, and the whole shirt was just it said "Roll the dice" with some dice, and Mickelson was like, "Wow, Raw Dog, roll the dice. What does that mean?" And my buddy was just like, "Oh yeah, that's all about unprotected sex." And Mickelson was like, "Oh, cool, I'll take two of them."
Nice.
Yeah, he was just always the man.
Yeah, it's funny. Yeah, he's a super cool guy. I got to work with him down in Miami or Fort Lauderdale, I guess. God, probably 8 years ago
Uh,
now. It was a
that's
funny. This
awesome.
was before he was adding color to his weapons that he does, and
Right.
I'd never forget, man. He was in the middle making this 9 mil for this kid, and the kid asked for a little bit of like red or ruby accents on it, and he starts adding it to it, and then the thing cracked all to shit. He's like, "This is why I don't want to use any fucking color on these things anymore." And now they're like full color and patterns, and just he got over that real quick.
Yeah. Oh man, it's funny those things sometimes. Like we change one thing and it throws us off, or we want to blame everything on that piece or
Mm-hmm.
that change.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
With that being said, how long did it take you to get a hand torch and a fucking blow hose?
Oh my God. It took me, let's see, I don't think I got a hand torch until I was, yeah, maybe 10 years in.
Mm-hmm.
And a blow hose, I mean, honestly, I still don't use it mostly. Like I'm the old school, just like up to my mouth kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like obviously if I'm at the lathe or if I'm working on something big at the bench or something else, I like it. But there's a certain kind of flow I've gotten to not having it, and I like it. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm the same
I
way.
think it
I
was one
wear
of
it.
those things where
Oh, go on.
yeah.
Go on. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh yeah, I think it was just one of those things. No, it's all right. Like kind of like Mickelson probably, where I probably fucked up a piece because my swivel was like kinking, or it got like some moisture in the blow tube or something, or blow hose, and I was probably like, man, fuck these things.
Yeah.
But really, it's a helpful tool.
Yeah, it is. I think I wear mine more than I use it, kind of thing. But it's definitely it's always on my neck just in case.
Yeah, it's a good fashion accessory.
Yeah, I just always had to learn to when I had to go take a piss to make sure the mouthpiece was tucked in my pocket, because I definitely got it wet a couple times.
Oh yeah, went for a little swim.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, or piss on it. Something stupid,
Yeah, it swings through the stream like
Yeah,
fuck.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, speaking of lathes, man. So I was looking at your tubes you're doing. Like, are those mostly lathe done? Or are you hand spinning those guys?
Mostly they're, I mean, I'll mostly stack the sections by hand,
Okay.
just because I like being able to get different angles and things.
Yeah.
But I got this a Bethlehem GL 100, lathe I'm using to put them together. And it's not, the Bethlehems are not the best lathes in the world. Maybe the not the straightest and not the quietest and all that stuff, but for a big bong like that, it does what I need it to do.
Yeah, that's all that matters, man. How long's the bed on that thing?
Let's see. I think it is. It's pretty long. I mean, it's not giant, but it's pretty long. And the great part is that the bore of the lathe is like 100 something mils, so you can
Nice.
fit things right through it, and it's easy to move. It doesn't take up a bunch of space, which in New York City is very helpful.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So yeah, I like it.
Yep.
Actually, I also have a collection of mini lathes. Sort of like a few years ago, I started dude who was an owner,
Oh, I'm losing you again.
and
I just lost your signal there for a sec.
he. Oh,
Yeah, I think.
sorry. Hopefully I'm back.
Yep, you're back.
But yeah, I found this a bunch of years ago. I was on eBay and I found this guy who was in Long Island, and his name on eBay was like Glass Tools or something like that, or Machines or something. And I was like, who the hell is this dude who's glass toys or glass tools out in Long Island? How do I not know this guy? So like whatever it was, I decided I was going to win that auction, and I was like, can I come out and pick this thing up? And it ended up being this old thermometer maker. Or he's not that old. He was just, older than me. And he had this big warehouse that he had cars he was fixing up. And he said he had cleared out an old thermometer factory like years and years ago. So he was just slowly selling off all the torches and tools and all that stuff.
Wild.
Um, and yeah, he had some uh, thermometer lathes, and I don't think he had any available at that point. But I think a year or so later, a year or two later, I got something else from him on eBay and came to pick it up, and he was like, "Hey, I'm clearing out my warehouse here. If you want this little thermometer lathe, you get out of it for $40." And I was like, yeah, okay, that's yeah.
Nice.
And that kind of started a little collection of tiny thermometer lathes for me.
I
I
never
picked
even
up
knew
a
that
few
was a
more.
thing, man. That's fucking cool.
Yeah, most people haven't seen them. I mean, I've tried Googling them. You barely see anything, if anything. I think most of them were just made industrially. They just made by the business to make certain things, but it's just such a fun little tool. These things that most of them, the bore on the machine is maybe 9.5 if I'm lucky. 9.5, or if some of them it's like 6 or 7 mil or something like that, and it's amazing all these little machines.
Interesting.
Um, but I've been able to have some fun with them. One of them I just made into a little like bubble cap machine. I would make all these tiny little bubble caps on it, but it was the perfect little machine for it. And
Yeah,
yeah,
sounds
at
like
this
it. Huh.
point, yeah, now I think I have maybe 4 or 5 of them, different states of working, but it's a fun little collection.
Yeah, it's unique. I've never, like I said, I never even knew those things existed. I have to look them up. It's fun. Or
Yeah,
send me a couple pictures if you could too.
yeah, for sure.
Love to post that up for you.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. So yeah, so it's something else I wanted to bring up too, if you're down for talking with the COVID stuff, was
Sure.
a lot of us put on 20 pounds and a lot of us lost like 50, and you're one of the ones that lost a bunch of weight and started getting your shit together. So
Yeah.
what was the key to that? Was there your wife kicking the ass?
Well, I mean, a little bit. She's maybe a year or two ago, she kind of started losing a bunch of weight, and she'd gone on keto and all this stuff. And I think she lost about 80 pounds maybe 2 years ago. And that was really inspiring and incredible. But I was also, love Hostess cupcakes.
Mm-hmm.
So, I didn't necessarily try to lose any weight at that point. But yeah, there was something about, I feel like the pandemic happened, and within a few weeks, it's actually just about been a year, about maybe today or tomorrow, that I did this whole, started this weight loss journey. But I really feel like um, the added sort of need to be disciplined. Like I have to make sure I have these gloves on. I have to make sure that I have this mask on, that I stay away from these people. I have to make sure I get all these things before I come home or whatever it was. That added discipline actually helped me to feel confident in adding more discipline, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, well, if I can do that, then I can do this and eat healthier and just try to see what I can do. And that was really amazing. Also with COVID, we're not going out to eat.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a little something. Um, so I just started kind of being like, all right, I'm just going to eat better. And especially in this industry, it can be tough because, most of us, we're stoners. We just want to hang out and smoke weed and eat snacks and like not worry about that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was lucky that I was able to make it stick. And you know I don't know exactly what I was at the beginning of this journey, but I know I'm about 115 pounds down from my top weight.
Wow, that's awesome.
So that
Congrats.
makes thanks. Yeah, it feels good to be able to have something like that you struggled with. Personally, I've struggled with my weight since I was maybe 9 or 10 years old. So to be able to sort of finally turn around and be like, you know what? I'm more powerful than you are, be able to sort of bully my hunger and habits and stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, it felt good.
Yeah, that restraint and the discipline like you're talking about is it's crucial, man. Like I know early on back when I started my journey of losing weight, and just it's like a lifestyle change really comes down to it. I mean, it took me
Yeah.
2 years and I think I lost like 35 pounds at the time, and my goal was to have like a six pack by the time I hit 40. I got pretty fucking close, and then I went through a really bad divorce and became a fat kid. And I was like, okay, cool, I can sit in bed now and watch fucking Pokemon on TV and eat Oreo cookies and shit. Like a
Oh,
dummy.
nice.
Like I went right to that fucking mindset again, and like it's like fuck. So I'm at that point now where I'm getting back into the mindset of just changing my diet first, because you got to start small. It's all baby steps, and then eventually you can have all kind of shit going on and be disciplined. It's so important. And I think too for us, like those of us that are doing this as a living, you got to take care of your body. Your body's the machine that does all your work, and if you're not taking care of it, then you're not gonna be able to do it for a long time.
Yeah, I remember, in what's it called, contemporary lamp working. They have a whole section on, stretches to do and things like that. That hopefully keep you blowing glass for longer. A lot of us we're hunched over while we work, or we're not taking care of certain things, and yeah, it's really important to like we're the machine, we're the thing that has to keep moving
Yeah.
basically in this industry. So you got to take care of it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And yeah, and it's been great to go through this and really learn about new things and feeling confidence and changing habits. And I got to thank also my buddy Los One Glass, Carlos. He moved in here into the studio here a couple months before pandemic. I feel like he got here like in the September of 19, I think. And as soon as basically a couple days after he got here, we had like a flood in the studio that shut us down for a month. And then like a couple months later, all this COVID stuff happened. We were locked down, and he's been kicking butt in New York City, with all this going on.
Hell yeah.
But he's really helped me out in terms of he's into MMA and been training forever. So he's been a real good guide in this whole nutrition and fitness regimen, and showing me certain exercises and bringing in like things to exercise on. It's been awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I love it, man. I love physical activity like that. It's like you're saying, we're in our shops all the time, so it's hard to get out or want to get out, I should say, and do some kind of physical activity. Like I was doing jump rope and bodyweight exercises, so I could just do them right in my shop. So it was,
same here.
Which was
convenient. You got those TRX straps, and you just lean back or whatever and do some shit and monkey around, and it's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah. So good transition there, dude. Speaking of monkeying, what I'm always curious how glass artists get their names, because back in the day we all had some kind of incognito kind of thing going on because we had to, and now we can say hey Ben, how are you?
Right.
But the MTP thing, so where the hell did that come from?
I mean, originally it was like my like AOL screen name as a teenager. I just I thought it was funny. Like I was always in my family, like poop humor is big.
Yeah, me too.
We're big on poop humor, fart stuff. Like it's
hell yeah.
I always said farts are always funny.
Always.
Like, no matter what situation, whenever it is, farts are funny. Yep. So it had been my AOL screen name, my email address, and like when I was first starting out blowing glass, I was on one of those forums, and I was just maybe like 3 months into blowing glass or something. I was so new, and I was under some other name on there, and they were having like a meetup, like, a Northeast glassblower meetup. And I emailed the dude to like be like, hey, can I come to the event? It would be so fun to hang out. And I just remember seeing on the post on the discussion group, they were like, who the hell is Monkey Throw Poop? That name is fucking awesome. So I was like, all right. So I guess this is accepted in this community.
Nice.
And then that was just kind of my name on that forum. And then, eventually that's just, it sticks in people's heads, It's one of those things where you don't forget it so easily.
Yeah, it's great, man. And the MTP thing is just like rolls off the tongue easily too. So it's well done.
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah, it's been fun, like some of the different plays on different logos that I've been able to do, like the STP oil logo. I have, a logo that's like that, but I made it an MTP. And my buddy Alex McNair, he was like, oh dude, I had this idea. You got to do one of those. I need my MTP. I want my MTP. Like instead of I want my MTV. And I was like, oh, genius. Fuck yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's like how do you say it? was it BMFT?
Oh yeah.
He was going by, and I was like, what the fuck does that stand for?
Totally.
And then I saw a post one day, and I was like, oh yeah, perfect.
Totally. Brendan motherfucking Taylor.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, it's
He's
yeah,
the man.
yeah, it's amazing.
I remember one time he came to work here. I was working out in Long Island Glass at the time, and he was on one of these tours through, doing a big collab tour, just going everywhere and collaborating. And he came by, and we were working together, and you know, he was like, "Oh yeah." We were all talking to some other people. He's like, "Yeah, I'm staying on Ben's couch tonight," and I was like, "No, you're not." And he was like, "What? I thought I was staying with you." I was like, "Yeah, man, you're staying in my guest room." And
Nice.
he got all excited. He was like, "Oh shit, I get a door and a bed." He's like, "Oh, this is the best."
Hell yeah, that's great, man.
Sometimes that makes all the difference on one of those trips.
Oh, totally, man. Like when I first started working over at Disney, I was doing like 3 hour, 3.5 hour round trip commutes every day.
Ugh.
And I had a buddy of mine I met he was a glass collector and who lived here in Orlando. He was like, dude, anytime you want to come over and crash, like you're welcome to. And I was like, awesome. So I'd get off work.
You're like,
and then,
"This everyday work?"
right? And that's what I started getting into, right? So I was like, I'll even like rent your couch or something if I have to. Well, they had a spare bedroom, and it was like he was like, I was like going to the couch, same kind of thing, like to crash on the couch. He's like, no, man, follow me over here. Like own TV and fucking super comfortable bed, better than the bed I had at home. I was like, man, can I move in with you guys? So nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's
Dude,
really
that must be so cool to be working in Orlando and Disney and seeing all the kids seeing glass blowing for the first time and just wide-eyed and amazed.
yeah. It's
That's awesome.
it's pretty amazing, man. It's an honor to be part of the show and inspiring the kids. And whenever I work at Magic Kingdom, like my home base is Epcot, but when I get a chance to work at Magic Kingdom, I'm always laughing when the kids are like, the parents are like, come on, let's go, and the kids are like, no, and they have to go to like Space Mountain or something, and the kids want to hang out and watch me working, and like every once in a while I'll get like the dad look, and I give the look back to them, and I'm like, okay, kids, time for a break, and I'll turn my torch off, kind of thing, so they can get out of the shop.
Totally.
But Keith, who's one of my Keith Bryan is my manager at work now, but he's been doing glass for like 30 something years, and he was telling me he went to a gas conference years ago, and I guess they brought him up on stage and talked about some of the Arribas Brothers glass blowing stuff we would do. And they asked the audience like how many of you were inspired as a kid, to get into glass when you go from going to Disney, going to Disneyland mainly at the time, and like he said like 30 or 40% of the audience like raised their hand, so
Wow.
it's cool to see like who we're inspiring, and it's cool, man. I love it. I've made a lot of contacts and good contacts that are like business side of things, or just people I've ended up having become students who have always wanted to learn how to do it. So it's pretty cool, man. It's definitely a lot of fun, and I always make sure like my demonstrations are fun and entertaining in a sense, and I'm always talking with the guests, and they're always really concerned to want to ask me questions, and I'm just telling them like to ask away, and then they're surprised I can keep doing what I'm doing while I'm answering questions and talking and not burning myself, kind of thing.
Totally.
It's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's definitely and having grown up inside the parks and been a huge fan of the art itself, and always wanted to be an animator and all this other shit. So it's almost been a decade that I've been working there, and it's still surreal, whenever I'm in there working.
That's amazing. You grew up in the area?
Yeah, so growing up in St. Pete, it's like an hour. So St. Pete's about an hour and a half north of Sarasota, over in Pinellas County.
Hmm.
So having like I didn't go to Disney all the time, but I went just often enough to say like as a local, quote unquote, that was in the parks a lot. But
Sure.
and then as I got older, I got like into my teen phase where I was like, the princesses and all that shit I didn't really care about, so I didn't go as much. And then I got into high school, and then we went for grad night, and I think the grad night trip was what really set things in stone for me as like, okay, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid type of thing, because we on the way over from into Tampa to Orlando, we all dropped acid on the bus on the way there. So we're
Mhm.
thinking like, okay, we got an hour and a half to get to Orlando. We'll be just about to be peaking by then, hopefully, and then we'll get off the bus, get in the park, and then it's nighttime. Like they open the park for grad night. It could go from like 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. So
Wow.
yeah, dude, it was completely magical. But what was fucked up is we got there at 8 o'clock, and they didn't open up the doors for us until 10. So like the four of us are on the bus with all of our friends, just tripping our balls off in this fucking bus. We're wearing like long sleeve shirts, and we had to wear ties and have our shirts tucked in and shit the whole time. So it was a very interesting experience. But when we got into the park, being in that mindset and just it just was a whole different perspective for me, obviously, because I'm tripping my balls off. But it really gave me a chance to like absorb just all the details of what was happening inside that place, and understanding the history of what went into making the attractions and stuff beforehand. Just really, just like I said, it just solidified this love that I have. And it's not for like I love all the animated movies and all that stuff, but I love like the technology and the thought and the creativity and the imaginative side of things that goes into what they make for us as an immersive experience. It's just which working inside of that environment then makes me as an artist, if I'm watching like Remy from Ratatouille is one of my characters that I developed and I make for a living, or not for a living, but I make as a production piece for them. And like watching the film and like seeing the details in the food, and like they're slicing an onion, and it's it looks like a real fucking onion that they're in an animated style, and I'm like, well, if I'm making this in glass and I'm trying to recreate this film piece, I need to make my glass look as realistic as possible in terms of the quality of what I'm putting into it.
Right.
And,
That's a good point.
Yeah, it really made me
got to sort of like live up to their quality.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and then like we have to go through a whole approval process and work with Disney Animation on things. Like Remy's a Pixar character, so he had to go out. My sample that was getting approved had to go to California to Pixar and have them approve it. And from what I understand, it was like one of the first times that we've ever had Pixar approve anything in glass. It was pretty cool honor to be a part of that, But,
wow, that's awesome.
It definitely makes me step up my game. Like I have to make sure like the integrity, so like Figment is a character I make. He's like the unofficial mascot for Epcot, and he has orange horns and wings that as part of his character. And I also make Olaf, and Olaf has a carrot nose.
Is that
right?
Figment?
Yeah, Figment.
Was that Figment? Yeah, I remember Figment.
Yeah. So he's made a big resurgence in the fandom and stuff. But
totally,
they have two different. Their oranges are different shades of orange. Like the carrot is different than Figment's orange, and I can't intertwine the two. And with the Didinium glasses, it kind of fucks up your color sometimes. You got to pull out a stick of red, and it looks like it's orange through your glasses.
Right.
So like if I make these characters, like I have to make them on different days so I don't pick up the wrong orange, because my work will send it back to me to fix it, kind of thing, which I appreciate. Again, as the integrity for the characters, but also for the details that go into the work.
Yeah. I mean, it is that must be amazing. Like you're saying, just seeing Disney in a whole new perspective where, especially as a teenager, I'm sure it's really easy to fall into that cynical sort of like, oh, whatever, man, it's like a corporate like bullshit. They're trying to sell this and that. But like when you really think about it, it's like, well, they're also giving these magical experiences to these children and these people, and they provide this thing that wouldn't exist otherwise, and is actually beautiful because it provides like all this beauty for these kids and these memories, and that's great that you're able to connect with that.
Yeah, man, it's people ask me all the time like what are my favorite things to make, and I always tell them like, for one, I have like a spiel that I say the same 5 things all fucking day, answering the same questions. But like every once in a while someone will ask me like, what's your favorite thing to make, and I'm like, I know what I don't like making, but what I appreciate and my favorite things to make are these custom orders for guests, and usually it's something that symbolizes like a lost loved one or something like that. And a lot of times I'll throw like a little hidden Mickey in the piece just so they it came from Disney kind of thing as like my little signature for it. But I've had some like extremely touching emotional tears on stage with guests telling me their story of what the piece is for or who it's for. And just this past Wednesday we had a family come in, and their son, he couldn't have been more than like 23. And he came in an electric cart, and then his mom was telling us that he's in hospice care now, and so he was at Disney for like one of his last outings in a sense. And one of his favorite characters is Goofy, and there's a piece that Jimmy Dills, one of our artists, makes that I remember seeing as a kid in the parks, because Jimmy's been with us for like 24 years now. So again, it's surreal to see this Goofy character that I saw as a kid. Now I know the guy that makes it, and I've seen him make it, kind of thing. It's fucking weird, dude. But they saw it, and it's a Goofy fishing piece where Goofy's like caught the back of his pants, So it's a hilarious piece. It's such a classic Goofy thing, and it's like this kid's favorite character, his favorite part of any Disney cartoon is this character piece. And so they saw it in the window when they were in line for the ride in the pyramid there, and they came in to buy it, and they're telling us their story. And one of the ladies I work with, she's like in tears. There's, we're all like emotional in the store. And I'm like, well, just by chance, if you guys are going to Magic Kingdom, Jimmy's going to be working there this week. So they were super excited to get to talk to Jimmy. So, the honor to have those magical moments that we can be a part of is just, I'd work there for free just because of those moments that I get to be a part of.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
it's got to be so rewarding. Like I've said, so many of us are like in our dungeons or in our studios, and we get to. It's nice when you see someone who's like, oh, I use that piece that you made all the time, and that is one of my favorite things. But when you really get to connect with like a kid or someone who like really, it means something special to them, that's a whole different feeling.
Yeah, completely. I always find it interesting, too, when the kids, I hear them in the shop talking, I watch these Instagram videos, glass videos, and I'm like, oh, man. You guys watching pipe makers out there blowing glass? Like, what are you watching? Probably pipe makers,
Yeah, right. You got to sort of eye them up real quick, like, oh, okay, yeah, I know what you're watching, buddy.
Yep. Yeah, we watched this MTP guy the other day.
Made these cat butts? Yeah. I don't know. These glass blowers are weird.
Exactly. Oh, shit. Oh, that's good stuff. So I think on that note, man, we should take a quick break and thank some sponsors, and then we'll come back here and it'll be time for us to crash the kiln.
Cool.
This segment is brought to you by the supporters of our Patreon. For as little as $1 a month, you can gain access to early releases of podcast episodes, monthly coaching calls, video tutorials, and more. The first 20 artists to sign up and join our founders group will have lifetime access to online courses, coaching calls, and much, much more. If you'd like to support the show while growing as an artist, head over to our community at patreon.com/WiseGuyRadio or use the link in the show notes and sign up today. That's patreon.com/WiseGuyRadio. That's WYZGUY Radio. So Crashing the Kiln round consists of 7 questions. You can give me a 30 to 60 second answer to make them quick, or we can also expound upon them as typically happens here. And the first question I always like to ask is if there's any living glass artist that you haven't worked with yet and want to collab with. Who is it and why?
Oh, that's a good question. Let's see. Who would I want to work with? I mean, I guess off the top of my head, I feel like Yushin's work is so clean, and like I'm always really impressed by that. And I've looked up to his work for a long time, and he's got a great flow. I mean, those giant pieces he would make back in the day were just insane. So I feel like, and he's just a nice dude. It'll be fun to get down on something.
Hell yeah. Yeah, man, his old ass push bubblers I used to do. Just massive.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Number 2 is, what are your top 5 favorite colors in glass?
Let's see, favorite colors. I mean, I remember when Purple Lilac, that one was, when that first came out, like the pre-pink slime or whatever, that blew my mind. I love that. Mm-hmm. And even just regular slime, I think, is a beautiful color. It's funny, I feel like I don't use my favorite colors all the time, but there are some that I just think are gorgeous, like that candy apple red that North Star does or whatever, where it's I think steel wool dipped in pomegranate.
Yeah.
That's a beautiful color. Even I love fumey colors too. Like back in the day, Blue Moon was my favorite. Mm-hmm. That was such a hit. And let's see, what would be? I mean, OG Moss has got that sheen. You get that looking the right way. That's something special.
Yeah, man. I found a little stick of that stuff in one of my scrap boxes a couple weeks ago. The old OG Moss.
Nice.
I was stoked. Yeah, I don't want to ever even use it. I think it was like old school. Like, it's probably 10 years old. It's probably been sitting in my box for.
Yeah.
Yeah, wasn't that one of the sparkle colors that you could use inside out and it didn't check and crack?
Yeah, I think it was definitely more stable than the other ones. But yeah, I mean, all those sparkle colors make me a little nervous.
Oh man, every time I tell them all my newbies like, don't use that sparkle shit on the inside.
Yeah.
But then if you do,
So
you'll
yeah, I've
understand
even
what glass checking means. You know, it's like it's a good lesson to teach the science behind why shit goes wrong.
yeah, that's true. Like and just like you're saying, seeing the difference between checking and cracking is really important. I know so many people who have been blowing glass for so long who are like a piece will crack on them and be like, oh yeah, that thing checked.
Hmm.
It's like, nah, that's a different thing,
Yeah.
where it's like checking is the color failing, cracking is when, you probably fucked it up.
Yeah, exactly. There was a dude years and years and years ago. I don't even know who it was. Thank God, because I would definitely call his ass out. But he was going around selling inside-out spoons that had some kind of something inside of it, sparkly color. That they were all checked, and he was selling it as fucking Dichro. Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah, man. I ran this
That's
smoke shop for like
crazy.
2 years, and on one of my days off, one of our girls bought some pieces from this dude, and she's like, "Look at these new Dichro spoons we got in," and I'm like, "That's not fucking Dichro." I was so pissed.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Yep, and those guys are the ones that give us a bad rap, in this industry.
Yeah, seriously.
And thank God, though, they're like a kind of few and far between anymore compared to what it used to be like back when it was somewhat of a shady industry still,
Yeah. Oh,
to be
seriously.
nice about it. Oh, man. So, number 3, what is your worst injury in the studio?
My worst injury. Let's see. I think, let's see, when I was first starting out, I was probably like maybe a year and a half into blowing glass, something like that. Maybe two, but I was sort of pulling out some twisty cane and I decided to like get the last twist and I twisted it really hard and I had my arms kind of like one arm up, one arm down, and I kind of like twisted and pulled too hard and the glass snapped. The cane, like twisty cane, snapped, and then my arm accidentally went back in, and I stabbed myself in the stomach,
Oh,
maybe like an inch and a half or
oh
so.
my God.
And that was like, yeah, I had a good amount more weight on me at that point too. But that was like that was interesting because at first I was like, it was so hot it just cauterized the wound right away.
Yeah.
And I was like, I almost didn't feel it for a second. I was like, huh, oh man, there's a hole in my shirt. And I looked and I was like, oh shit, there's a hole in me.
Oh my God.
And luckily it all healed up fine and I never really had any issues from it. Like I had plenty of padding,
Right.
you know.
A little extra cushion.
But
Jesus.
yeah, but like that was probably the worst or the most surprising at least.
Yeah, thank God it didn't like snap off in you or something.
Seriously.
Man, yeah, it's scary.
Uh,
But I know what you mean, though, man. You get that last little twist in there, and just shit gets cold, and it just weakens it, and it's amazing.
yeah.
It's amazing, man, how glass is just like all of a sudden it's the strongest thing on earth, and then the next thing you know, it's breaking in your hand.
Seriously. It can wobble like like a spring or it can just snap. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
and go right through your hand. It's
Yeah.
bananas.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when you're in the shop, do you listen to music, watch the TV, or do both?
I'm actually like back in the day I would do music mostly, but the last couple years, especially the last like year or two probably, I've just been all about podcasts.
Nice.
Yeah, mostly pretty much all I do is listen to like comedy podcasts,
Hell
so
yeah.
that's been super fun, like just getting into that, especially living in New York City where I've been able to get into a lot more, going to see, well, pre-pandemic, I was seeing a lot more stand-up shows and things like that. And podcasts are really a great way to find out if you like someone or, like their style.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. What are some of your shows you listen to?
Let's see. I mean, my favorite is probably this one's actually just a Sirius XM show, but it's kind of I think they have a podcast of it too. But it's called The Bonfire with these comedians, Big J Okerson and Dan Soder,
Okay. Yeah,
and
yeah.
they're just super funny and like they have a great back and forth, and it's a great relationship. There's this other podcast called Are You Garbage,
Huh.
which came out like a year ago. It started doing it about a year ago, and it's just super funny. These two comedians from Philly who are like kind of just trash themselves, and then they have guests on and they kind of ask them questions to be like find out if that person is garbage or not garbage.
Interesting.
And it's so funny. And yeah, there's just so many great podcasts he's doing. Tuesdays with Stories, Take Your Shoes Off, and like Real Ass Podcast, Legion of Skanks, Bye Guys, all these like No Need for Apologies. There's so many great ones out there. Bill Burt and Burt Kreischer, and Two Bears, One Cave, and Bad Friends, and it's almost endless.
Yeah, it really is. I know what you mean. Check out the Last Podcast Network. I think they're
Ooh,
they're
cool.
exclusively on Spotify now, but they've been doing shows like 10 years now, and they started off with Last Podcast on the Left, is what the LPN thing stands for, and
Right.
they started doing just true crime shows, and then they started like an actual network with other shows. The but they're it's super educational and it's fucking hilarious, dude. Like you'll appreciate it because of your sense of humor, but I'm sure like your average person would listen to this and be completely offended by the side commentary. It's
Oh man,
so good. Like they did, like right now they're doing a series on Alcatraz, and they just finished up part 2 talking about when it's up to its closure. But they started off with the Birdman of Alcatraz, and like his background and what led him to go into Alcatraz, and then they get into the history of Alcatraz and all this other shit. It's very fascinating. But they're the hosts.
man,
Let me try to bring it up real quick.
that's awesome.
I'll send you a link to it. But one of my favorite shows they have on their network is Wizard and the Bruiser, and they're just a couple of dudes that are super nerds, and they super nerd out and deep dive about anything nerdum, from video games to movies to, I mean, anything. And they get into some really interesting behind the scenes information, that stuff that I thought I knew about, but I had no idea. And they're also just fucking hilarious.
That's so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes a big difference. Like I could hear somebody hilarious talk about nothing for an hour and love it.
Yeah. Yeah,
If
absolutely.
they're funny, if they got a good sense of humor, it's perfect.
Yeah, and the fun thing with the show, with the Last Podcast guys, is the way that their format set up is they have Marcus Parks, who's like the narrator basically, so he's like the storyteller, and then you got fucking Henry Zabrowski, which I'm sure you've seen him on other TV shows.
Hmm.
He's amazingly loud and obnoxious and hilarious, but he's also like the color commentary guy, and he also does like if there's like a not a script, what the fuck, like dialogue that there needs to be said, he will read the dialogue like an impersonation of the person's voice, kind of thing. He does all these crazy stuff, and then Ben Kissel is like the audience perspective, so he has no idea about any of the information that they're talking about, and then has his own commentary about things that are going on, and
Wow.
it's super fascinating. They're all like hail Satan and all this other fun shit. Like they don't give a fuck, you know. But all the
It
other
kind of reminds me of there was this podcast that I loved, and actually they just ended like maybe a month or two ago, called The History Hyenas. And that was kind of a similar thing where they would try to go through some history, but end up just going on like kind of ridiculous rants about themselves and their lives, and offensive shit and all
Mhm.
this stuff. And it was two guys from Brooklyn, and they're just like such New Yorkers, and it was a great podcast, History Hyenas. But they're each going on to their own thing now, so I think it got a little too wild, and they were like, "All right, we need to have real careers though, because this shit might get us canceled."
I just sent you a link to their thing on Spotify.
Oh, awesome! Yeah, I'll definitely check it out.
These guys are fucking killing it though, dude. They have like their Patreon that they have that you can give $1 a month to support them, which I have for this podcast.
Yeah.
So if you're listening to this podcast, anybody, and you want to help support the show, you can for as little as $1 a month.
Sign
you can
up.
help me pay the bills. But these guys have like 35,000 patrons in their group. So like
That's awesome.
every month they're making at least $35,000 in Patreons helping pay them, and then Spotify came in and bought their network from them, so they're
Wow.
doing really well. Yeah, and then they have all these other shows that are underneath them. Fraudsters is another good one. They get into these two guys, and they're both comedians, but they get into like they're actually in the middle of a 3-part series on the history of Enron and how that all went down, and it's just very fascinating stuff. Like again, like you think you know it all this stuff from just the news and reading stories, and then you find out like the nitty gritty deep dive details, and it's like, man, this is some fucked up shit.
Totally. That's wild. Yeah, that's one of the fun things about that kind of podcast where it's like you can kind of learn something and you can and laugh the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best times.
Yeah, exactly. And that was one of the reasons I started the show, just to give everybody a little company in the studio and talk about glass while you're melting some shit, melting shit and doing your thing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so many of us are just there by ourselves in our garage or something, just melting stuff, and we need some company.
Yeah.
I would always say like, for a while I was just in the studio by myself. Like I didn't really have any renters or anything, so I would blow glass all day and then get home and just talk my wife's ear off because she would just like,
Sounds
I didn't
familiar.
have anyone to talk to, and she had talked to people all day, and I would just exhaust her with my just words.
Yep. Yeah, when I used to FaceTime mine or call her on the phone, I would just like, okay, here we go, and I would just ramble for 30 minutes on my break.
Totally.
Yeah, they're good for something, right?
Yeah, totally.
She's sitting here giving me the stink eye. Shit. All right, back on the tracks here. So, if you could describe the sound of glass cracking in one word, whether like a physical pain that it gives you or the actual sound it makes, what would that be?
Let's see. I mean, like there is always that moment of just like, I guess it depends on the shape of the glass and what it is, but normally I feel like I'll feel my heart slump.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Where it's just like, especially when you put something in the kiln, you're like, all right, now it's going to be all happy and get warm again. Everything's cool. And then like, 20 seconds later, you hear that tink. It's, fuck. My heart just slumps down and I'm like, okay,
Yeah,
I got more work to
your
do.
blowpipe's like a megaphone saying, you suck. Because it
Totally.
just magnifies the sound. It's the worst. Like I used to not use bridges because I hated that fucking stress of going in there and like a bridge popping.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And when a bridge pops, it's crazy. It sounds like the biggest pop in the world
Yeah.
sometimes. You're like, what the hell was that? Like I don't see anything wrong with it. And then you just see that little tink in the bridge.
Yeah, it's amazing, man. It's like a catastrophic crack, and it's just just a bridge. Thank God.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just makes you. But also when that shit happens, it makes you fucking pay attention and clean your work up.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, it's huge. So the next question is, do you have any glass blowing themed tattoos?
Ooh, no, I don't have any tattoos as of now. But I definitely know some people with some. I know my buddy Joe Itza, he's got, some really beautiful tattoo work with the hand torches that he's used forever on there, and
Nice.
different elements for propane and oxygen, and I think tools like diamond shears and stuff. So
Hell yeah.
yeah, Joe Itza's got some dope ones.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, I'm always curious.
Yeah.
It's always like, yeah, I've got 10 of them, or I have no tattoos at all. That's usually what the answers are.
I'm thinking about just getting the words "heady shit" tattooed on my forehead. I don't know.
Hell yeah, just have it say heater.
We'll see. Totally.
I've always wondered, like, what's the difference between a heady and a heater piece? Like, are they the same thing? Like, what are we talking about here? Is like this was found on Dead Tour, and this is found in Colorado. Yeah.
Right.
I
Maybe
love
a heady, you get a little bit more like, whoa.
it. Yeah.
And a heater is just like, dude, that's cool.
Yeah. Little fire emojis.
Yeah.
And last question is, what are your top 5 favorite tools? And it does not include your torch or your kiln or your glasses.
Let's see. I think, I mean, I like to have a few kinds of reamers. I have like a couple small brass reamers that I actually really like. Um, like I feel like I got one years ago. It was like a cheap kind of small one, octagonal brass reamer that was awesome. And I used that until I melted the tip off, and then
Hmm.
I cried about it for a year or so, and I finally told my buddy who does a little bit of metal work, and he's like, "Oh yeah, yeah, I can make you up one of those," and like ran down in his shop for 10, 15 minutes and came back up with one. And I just like, being able to get in those small holes and not worrying about your graphite breaking off or whatever it is.
Yeah.
It's so helpful. I mean, on my list of favorite tools, I got to put my cat butt bowl push.
Hell yeah.
I mean, that's a standard one for sure. Um, what else do I love? I mean, I have some funky shaped paddles that are like really good for getting in between things, like on the lathe.
Okay.
That might be sharp on one end and kind of flat on the other, and that's been really helpful. And a good marble molds, man. Like I got some old Dan Grumbling ones that are good, and even just a big like I think they sell a big kind of Hammer of Thor one somewhere, and
Huh.
with like 10 different molds in it, and some of that is so helpful. I've seen people who've been blowing glass for years and all that stuff and don't know how to use a marble mold right, and it's just such a necessary tool.
Yeah, I agree. Especially like if you can get the ones that have the infinity lips on them, that like the newer style marble molds.
Yeah,
They're nice.
seriously. Yeah,
You got
I
one
mean
more.
those are most of my. One more. Let's see. Just looking around my bench and being like, what do I use? I mean, really, like I'm kind of basic when it comes to tools. Yeah, like some good tweezers, and reamers, and paddles, and any kind of pushes you might need. Like I said, yeah, I got the that butthole bull push. I have like a big one. I have a small one for pendants, and any kind of texture tool like that. I'm kind of into.
Yeah, yeah, I love them. I know a guy when I first started doing glass, he bought like a whole leather kit, like leather impression kit, whatever, from a flea market, and just used them
Right.
for like snake and dragon scales and like all kind of cool shit.
Yeah, man. Actually, yeah, I knew a guy who used to live down in Florida with blow glass, and I saw him use a bunch of texture tools. Did you ever know Steve Selchow?
Hmm, maybe name's familiar.
Yeah. Yeah, he used to do some old like dragons and fairies and stuff, and put them in little wood bases and things.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. He used to come up to some of those art glass, the AGI events and stuff like that.
I wonder.
Yeah,
Huh? Yeah, name's familiar. I don't. I'm not sure. I mean,
yeah. I think he just passed away a year or two ago,
huh?
unfortunately.
Yeah, it sucks. Huh?
Yeah, but he was a good dude. Made some great glass.
Hell yeah. Yeah, man, it's amazing. Like when we all pass away, our glass will continue to live on.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
seriously. Yeah, it's awesome to think about.
Yeah, it really
They
is.
might find they might find a marble of mine in 1,000 years or something, and you know, just blow some minds then too.
Yeah, some aliens will find it and be like, "Oh, what is this pink ring thing here?"
uh,
That's awesome. Well, yeah, man, it's been a pleasure sitting here fucking giggling with you all day. I could
yeah,
definitely talk to you forever. But
totally. It's been so much fun.
yeah, yeah, I know 2 hours already, man. It's fucking flying by. Holy shit.
Whew,
Yeah. So
man.
yeah. With that being said, before I let you go, I always like to ask my guests to give a little parting piece of advice, and then where we can find you out there in the world of cyberspace.
Cool. So, like advice for glass blowers mostly?
Yeah, or anything. Yeah, whatever. Life
I mean,
advice,
I think
glass
for glass
advice.
blowers, ooh, life advice too. I mean, I think there's been some, uh, this weight loss recently has really changed a lot of my, how I see things. And I feel like so many things are possible if you just come up with a plan and just stick to it, and do it, and I think it's important for glass blowing too. Yeah, you just kind of make a plan and you work at it and little by little make progress. And before you know it, you're where you want to be. Um, with glass blowing, especially, I think it's important to, I mean, starting out, like we said, take classes. You want to learn, especially the basics from people who know what they're doing. Um, and think outside the box. For me, it's always been important to do things that other people aren't necessarily doing. I feel like it gives your, I mean, it makes your work feel a little bit different, but it's also just as a person, I feel like I'm bringing something to the community. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's not just, I'm not just copying something else. I'm helping to move it all forward, even if it's in the direction of a cat butt or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's like adding something to the community really makes me feel good about what I'm doing.
Hell
And
yeah.
so, yeah, just try to do something that, inspires you, that you think is fun and interesting and looks cool and just remember to have fun.
Yeah, and that's the biggest part about it is having fun,
Yeah,
even though it's not always fun. But you know,
right.
it is what it is.
But finding ways to, make the work fun will make life worth living.
Yeah, exactly. Hell yeah, man. Well said. And then where can we find you in cyberspace?
Cyberspace on Instagram at MTP Glass. Hopefully, I'll have a website going soon. I'll be working on that soon. Um, yeah, mostly on Instagram. I mean, once in a while, I'll go on and do like a Reddit live video or something, but not really do a lot. I don't really do a lot of that these days. But yeah, mostly Instagram. Come find me on there.
Hell yeah. And I'll have the link for that in the show notes for y'all to go find them, or just look up MTP. And it's nice now because you can, with the Instagram, they have it so you can have your tag, and then you can expound upon your tag like you did with the monkey throws poop on there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
I love it.
Awesome.
All right, so I hope you all enjoyed this conversation with Ben. Had a lot of fun, and again, thanks again for coming on, bro. It was a pleasure talking to you. And after this whole COVID thing's over with, my long-term goal with this show is to get out and travel and work in other studios and actually do these interviews in person. So I'll definitely keep in touch with you because I'd love to come visit and make some cat butts on some of my pieces.
Hell yeah, totally, dude. Yeah, anytime you're welcome up here in New York, and I'll let you know next time but I'm down there to warm up for the winter.
Yeah, dude, absolutely. I have guest passes for Disney, dude. So anytime you want to come play, definitely would love to have you guys.
Awesome.
Hell yeah.
Thanks so much, brother.
Hope you all enjoyed this conversation and had a lot of fun chit-chatting with Ben. And definitely look for him on Instagrams and all the things he's doing out there. And so you can see a current picture of his weight loss and hopefully inspire some of y'all to eat better and get healthy and get outside and show the world what you're all about and lose some weight and be healthy again because we need to have these bodies forever.
It's worth it.
Fuck yeah, man. So until next time, y'all, take it easy. Take care of yourselves. Stay hydrated out there and happy melting. Have a wise day. Peace.